So the opening question of the day, are we perfect? I mean, we all know the answer to that. No, we're not. And because of that, we need to do things like build a buffer. And when I say build a buffer, I suggest that for every staff member you have, and you're a staff member yourself, you should be putting away a baseline of $100 per file or $500 per month, sort of in a separate little account, a separate little spreadsheet that you want to track it in. Keep track, because mistakes will be made. They will be made. And in our industry, the beauty of most mistakes, nobody bleeds out. Nobody drowns. Like if we make a mistake, lives are not lost. It's a much lower stakes environment. Money is lost. And sometimes that money is your money, and that's why you got to build a little buffer so that you're ready to write the check when you need to write the check. And of course, that's where being incorporated helps, because you have that divorce from your money. The overwhelming majority of you are incorporated, by the way. More than half of the half that weren't incorporated last year got themselves incorporated last year. So kudos to you. Fantastic move. And as you watch CPP and QPP spike, not a bad move at all. And documentation. Documentation is super important because, again, we're not perfect. I did everything I could to funnel clients into email only. Email only. And I need to do a better job of funneling you guys into email only, because, of course, there were people that had their link went to the spam folder, it went to a junk folder. For whatever reason, the server blocked the link email coming into you last night when we sent it out at about 8:30 Eastern, a little bit late, I know. And it was just email back, get the link right away. But there were text messages. There's probably some on Instagram. I haven't been on Instagram for 6 months. I don't know. There's DMs in Facebook. There's DMs in LinkedIn. People came from all different directions saying, hey, I need my link. Email, email, email. Email me. That's the best way to reach me every single time, because I usually have a backup person in my inbox paying attention to what's being asked for, even right now. So you could email me right now and you'd get a response as if it was from me. So I funneled all my client communications into email, because otherwise you are expected to screenshot every single text message exchange you have with clients. In particular, anything remotely meaningful about their approval, rate, dollar amount, policies, procedures around the lender, because if you ever find yourself involved in an E&O claim, we're going to talk about the lawsuit piece, the notes are what save you, and the notes that the other party took are what bury you. So that's how that works. And again, we're not perfect. And adapt, 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 right? We have to be able to adapt and change. We can't just stay the same person forever. That just does not work. And our processes and systems, more than ever, the biggest imperfection I think we ever suffer the most pain from is deviating from our process, deviating, playing outside of our system. That's where things go sideways. And we really need to start drawing a much firmer line in the sand as to, this is my process. If you don't like my process, you'll have to move on. And as I say, mistakes will be made. And I want to share a few stories. Some of these stories I may have shared in the past, but they're recent, they're relevant, they're things that are still happening. The first one to be aware of, and these are some of these little, you could file these under little pro tips, but they're also landmines that you may step on. And I know the individual who shared this recent experience with me, I believe, is tuned in right now. And man, I feel your pain, because I had the same thing happen. Luckily, this individual's situation didn't involve a second purchase. The one I was dealing with did. So when you register a private second mortgage behind a HELOC product, almost every single time that lender will figure it out, sometimes faster than you can believe. They just do. They have a lot of different ways that they find out that a private second has been registered behind their HELOC. And this is something you want to write down. You want to repeat it to clients so they understand it clearly. A line of credit is a demand loan. A line of credit is a demand loan, meaning payment can be demanded in full on a whim, 30 days notice, typically, in full. And access to the facility can be shut down instantly with no notice whatsoever. It's a demand loan. And you'll notice some of you are aware that these are registered at prime plus 10 in the mortgage documents. Prime plus 10 ties into the collateral charge piece where every other debt the client has is securitized by the mortgage, by the residents now. That's its own topic, isn't it? But the other thing is they can change the rate on that line of credit to prime plus 1, prime plus 3, prime plus 5. They can change that rate to whatever they want to change it to anytime they want to change it. Again, with virtually no notice. So it's a demand loan. So what happens when you park a private second, which is in clear written contravention to the policy of the mortgage holder of the bank with the HELOC, is they will demand full repayment of the HELOC, potentially. They will absolutely shut down access to the HELOC. So in this gentleman's instance, the client went in with a $200,000 check, handed it to the teller and said, I'd like to park this on my line of credit, because they didn't need the money for a few weeks. So the line of credit got paid down. Then the teller says, do you mind if I ask, how you came into this amount of money? Oh, we just took a second mortgage on the house. Not realizing, technically, that's actually a third, because there's the mortgage component, there's the line of credit component, and now there's a private second, AKA third. Another little key point, the lawyer does not work for the client. The lawyer doesn't work for the client. The lawyer works for the lender. And if that client goes back to the same lawyer who registered the first HELOC, the first mortgage, the lawyer is obligated to notify their client, the lender, that this client has, that the lender's client has registered another charge. So, am I suggesting you go to another lawyer to register these to work around that? I'm not suggesting that at all. Is that what happens a lot? Well, yeah, of course, because the people who have learned this lesson the hard way try and work around it. But when it's a HELOC, as I say, there's 1,000 ways that client's HELOC will get called. And I know some of you are listening to this going, I've put private seconds behind a step and a flex line, and I haven't had a problem. You haven't yet, and you've been super lucky. But realize this is what happens. And so that client put the 200 against the line, went home, got an email in their inbox later that day, your line of credit has been closed, suspended, no access. That's it. So they just borrowed 200 grand, parked it on the line of credit. Now the line of credit's gone, so they can't get that 200 grand back. That's a little dicey. Now, the upside is, of course, the loan to values change. So in theory, you could at least go back to the private lender and pay more lender fees, more registration fees, another delay, another week or two, potentially another appraisal, depending on how fast the market's moving and what the gap was. And are you charging a broker fee on that one? Because how did you not advise your client that this could happen, right? And that's where that broker is feeling a lot of internal pain, right? They need to be kind to themselves, because this is the business. You can be in the business for a decade before you learn a hard lesson like this, especially if only 5 or 10 of your transactions per year are privates and the other 80 or 90 are AAA business. If you're always on the A side and you just dabble in the privates, you're not really up to speed on that. A lot of you wouldn't be aware that placing a third mortgage on a property negates home insurance with most home insurance providers. They will cancel the home insurance, which is a major problem because now you're technically in default of the requirements of the first and second and the third mortgage holder in most cases. Anyway, I'll move a little faster through the next few slides here. Owner-occupied or not? Your client may have told you it was an owner-occupied property, but then when the lawyer went to order the insurance binder, they told the lawyer it's a rental. And again, who is the lawyer representing? Clients think because they're paying they're writing the check, they're paying the fees to the lawyer, that it's their lawyer. They think it's like a TV show where they can say anything to the lawyer and the lawyer can't rat them out. They don't realize it's not their lawyer. They're just paying the bill. It's the lender's lawyer. So there's another way that, as I say, things blow up. So when your client claims it's going to be an owner-occupied, it better be, and they better understand that it better be presented as an owner-occupied to everybody all the way through to the end. And again, creative submissions. Are you the only broker submitting to this lender? Are you? You might be the first one. For all you know, another broker did a credit pull 15 minutes after yours, didn't notice that you pulled credit, not picking up the phone to call you because most brokers don't bother calling one another, which is ridiculous. Whenever I saw a credit pull from another broker on a client's credit bureau, I called the other broker. Hey, seems like we've tripped over the same client. And it was interesting how sometimes the story the client had told that broker was different than the one they told me. And it might be because the story they told that broker got them declined. At the exact same lender you're now going to go submit to with a new story. And, you know, hopefully not new documents, because that's not a good situation to be in at all. And so you had best not ever color outside the lines. You better be presenting a story that fits with all the documents and everything the client has presented to you, because your submission could absolutely be radically different than the other broker's submission. And one of you is coloring outside the lines. One of you is offside. You never want to be the one that's offside. But that's another way that things blow up in brokers' faces when they try and get a little too creative. Compliance documents. Are those your initials? Because they don't really look like the client's initials. It looks like it was done with the same pen that you signed all the documents with, whereas the client appears to have used a finer tipped pen, except on this one totally meaningless, inconsequential compliance form. That just about cost a broker his entire career. It was not good. You will not believe who will be incensed with you that you've put their initials on a document. Somehow that package went back to the client, and the clients realized the difference, and the clients reported that broker to the regulator. That's fraud. It's mortgage fraud. It's inconsequential. It wasn't a misrepresentation as far as income or down payment or anything material. You know, nothing untruthful was said, but do not put someone else's initials on a document ever. Could you imagine blowing up an incredibly successful career over something that ridiculous? And this is the world we're in. You think you're doing someone a favor. Oh, they're away on vacation. I don't want to bother them. It's just a set of initials. You're not. You have to fly so straight and narrow and be so by the book at this point that there are no other options. There just aren't. And remember, this is one of the things about this industry. The barrier to entry is rock bottom. It is so easy to get into this industry. I mean, show me another profession where you can make $250,000 in your first year. If not your second year, your third year. Your fourth year, you can be making $500,000. Your fifth, sixth, seventh year, you can be making $700,000, $800,000, $900,000, all with what? Depending on where you are, a 1-week, $500 course. That's it. That's all it took. And that's the problem. It's so easy to get in. People don't value what they have, which, let's face it, in the right hands, an agent's license, a broker's license, is a license to print money. It's a phenomenal opportunity. It's a phenomenal business to be in. How gray is gray? How gray is gray? Well, you know, it feels like I might be in a gray area with this file. Who's watching you? Who are you sharing this gray area story with? Think about this. Family. Family's watching you. Your judgy sister-in-law, judgy brother-in-law, they're watching you. Your friends are watching you. And yeah, they're your friends, but they don't really know what you're talking about when you're saying you cut a corner and got it done. Like, not good. Your admin staff, your underwriters, the janitor, whoever, a spouse thinking about divorcing you, a spouse you're thinking about divorcing. some of you are unaware that the submission platforms record every single keystroke. So when you change things to make it work, that's all documented. It's all documented. And people are always watching you. So again, how gray is gray? You need to be very, very cautious when you start, as I say, drifting from the main course here. Tech is watching, right? Tech is watching. Like I say, submission software is recording every last stroke. That's the reality. Lenders want a detailed record of the entire application since inception. And again, talking about perfection, who's perfect? Is their staff perfect? No, they're not. And the best thing you can do when someone makes a massive mistake is maintain some self-control, because you're going to make mistakes. I just went through a whole bunch of mistakes you're potentially going to make, and sometimes your staff's going to make those mistakes on your behalf. But was the error honest? Was it an honest mistake, or was it malicious? 9 times out of 10, it was an honest mistake. It was someone not intentionally misrepresenting something. They just forgot to tell you that they owned 4 other properties with their brother in another province over, because they didn't think it mattered, because they're in another province. And they just co-signed. It's different, isn't it? Like a lot of times, they're honest mistakes made by clients, made by staff, made by us. Made by us. And when you make one of those honest mistakes and you've got the regulator breathing down your collar, that's where you need to have a managing broker in your corner. Hopefully you've got a kick-ass managing broker that, you know, is kind of a ride or die type thing and will do everything they can to protect you, because brokering is highly complex, right? I mean, when is a document not a document? How do you train for situation X? Now, those might seem obscure, but if you know, you know, right? When is a document not a document? No, this isn't a document. And so many times documents will get submitted to lenders that the lender never asked for, the lender didn't want to see, because now that the lender has seen these additional bank statements that weren't even needed to support the file, they actually have to trace back all the deposits on these bank statements, and suddenly you've got $100 gifted from grandma in one of the 8 countries that is sanctioned. So you've got this $100 e-transfer from an elderly relative out of a country that is on Canada's sanctioned monies, anti-money laundering list, and now your file's blowing up over I think it was actually $132. Like, it was insane. But it was what it was. How long is a piece of string? You start tugging on it. So don't send documents in you're not asked for, but guess what? When you have staff working for you, they're going to send in all the docs, especially if you're trying to train someone up from the ground to become your underwriter. There's going to be some hard lessons learned along the way. There just is. You know, it's inevitable. But fundamentally, when these imperfections occur, when these errors occur, they are opportunities. They are fundamentally opportunities to be kind, to lock in loyalty, and to demonstrate some humility. I mean, one of my favorite stories I think the book was titled Principles by Ray Dalio, was a $900,000 mistake that one of his newer hires made. A $900,000 mistake. Could you imagine one of your staff making a $900,000 mistake? I mean, that's how big a money game they're playing. Did he fire that guy? No. He said, I just made a $900,000 investment in this person. Why would I let them go? And 25 years later, that guy who screwed up to the tune of 900 grand, he now runs Ray's company. So, you know, the loyalty factor was pretty huge there, because that guy for sure thought his ass was grass. On that day, whew, man, that had like 900 grand. If that doesn't make you feel better about your own mistakes in life, I don't know what does. 3 steps to ease the pain. Like I say, build a buffer. Start socking away the oops money. Document, document, document. Hang on to documents. If you're using, say, Office 365 as I have, and you've got the client file, drop the emails, all the email exchanges, drop them into that file and hang on to them. Because 7 years later, when they're saying, my broker said, You want to be able to come back and say, no, 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 no. Actually, here it is in writing. Here is what I said. Here is exactly what I advised you. I warned you this might happen, right? And adapt, adapt, adapt. Yesterday we went through the letter of engagement. It's a 3-page beast. But if you can adapt and start applying that to your life gets a little easier when things get dicey. And of course, like I say, be firm on your processes and on your systems.